Hello and welcome to another episode of the Elite Health and Wellness Show podcast. I am Boomer Cornwell, one of the owners and co-founders of Elite Health Online. And with us again today in the studio is Shane with one of our vendor partners, Pharmacia, one of Vexus. Shane, how you doing?
Doing great.
Good, man.
Yeah.
We enjoy having you here because you're pretty scientific, way more than I am, you know. And I love talking about products. I love talking about some of the new things coming down the pike with the health and wellness industry, which is something we kind of wave our flag on that we think a pretty good job of it, right? I mean, there's a lot of products that kind of, I'm not going to say buck this system necessarily, but they're a little bit more progressive. Some things that maybe people haven't heard of, right? An example of that is a peptide. Right now,
Absolutely.
We're getting to a point where people understand, for the most part, what a peptide is and what it does and where it can play a role. I'm a big fan of peptides. You know, a couple of years ago, we would go around and tell people this is the future of medicine, and I think the future is here. I think peptides are absolutely here for that purpose, and they're making great waves. But there's a couple of other things. One I want to go over today,
Okay.
right? And I'm going to kind of tee it up this way, right? So. I've been on HRT therapy now for about 11 years. It's been working great. You know, I just like everybody else, I'll have my lulls. I'll kind of go down and kind of go up, and I'll get real serious about it. Then I kind of get lazy about it. That's just kind of the natural progression of things. But over the years, I've added some things to my therapy. And one of my most favorite products ever in the history of the world is oxandrolone.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it.
Sure.
Now, I know it gets a bad rap because it was really abused in the 70s and 80s, and it was discontinued for a while. It does serve a purpose. I mean, obviously, and we don't need to go into oxandrolone. It's not what we're going to here to talk about, but I want to correlate another product that I think mimics a lot of what oxandrolone will do.
Sure.
Right? Notices a lot of the same benefit, but it's a little different concept, okay? And that's the concept of a SARM. Right, an SARM, SARM.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in particular today, we're going to talk about one that you guys have called LGD 433, right? So let's start with doing this. Take us down the road a little bit of what is a SARM? What does SARM mean?
Sure.
Right? What is it? And then let's get into LGD.
Okay. So a SARM is a Selective Androgen Receptor Modulator. Okay.
That's a lot of terminology.
Yeah, it is. So what that means is it's going to bind with high affinity to certain androgen type receptors and not all. It's very similar to a SARM, which most people are familiar with. So SARM is a newer concept. A SARM or an SERM would be something like Clomid or tamoxifen citrate.
What does the E mean in SARM?
That would be a selective estrogen receptor modulator. Okay. So, people, it's used for breast cancer patients. It's used for certain things and kind of a dated therapy now, but still it's out there. In the bodybuilding world, it's very common for guys to take it to protect against gynecomastia or breast tissue overgrowth, right? If they're on certain compounds and things in conjunction with testosterone. So that's how a SARM operates. A SARM is very similar, but specific to androgen receptors. In the case of Ligandrol or LGD, this one will bind with really high affinity to muscle cell and bone, but it will not bind with high affinity and technically very poor, if at all, to the prostate. So those males that tend to have a BPH type symptom or their prostate might flare up when they're on TRT or androgens as a whole. Something like LGD is an alternative form that won't cause potentially any of the BPH symptoms, but it will increase muscle size and it will help with bone reformation.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of a juxtaposition because I brought up the concept of oxandrolone, Anavar, still one of my favorites. I'm going to love it to the day I die. But let's talk, because you talk about the binding piece of it, right? The receptor site. So the benefit of LGD versus oxandrolone in terms of how it binds and what effect does that have, right?
So oxandrolone or Anavar or any steroid alternative, right, which is still used in conjunction with TRT, legally prescribed here in the States, right? But that is still a testosterone derivative. It's something that's going to act like testosterone, but not necessarily be testosterone. So it's going to have different anabolic or androgenic ratio effects in the body. Okay. Anavar is great for muscle cell size. It's great for muscle hardening. It's great for vascularity, right?
Yeah.
All these aesthetics that improve. and what it does inside the body could be, I mean, there's a laundry list of things, but for
some of them not so good.
Yeah. Right? Well, overall, it's pretty safe actually for an oral compound that's 17A alkylated or methylated. It's a very safe one versus a, not to get off topic, but a Winstrol or Halotestin and other things that are out there that are very organ toxifying.
There you go. We'll say,
so back to LGD, what this is orally bioavailable. You don't have to inject this. You don't have to take it as a cream or anything. It's a simple pill similar to oxandrolone or Anavar. It's not methylated. Okay, so there's no potentiation of any liver enzymes going up or, again, long term, I guess we don't know that for sure, but you're not supposed to take this long term. That's the other significant thing. So similar to an Anavar type product, you do these short mini cycles, right? And so LGD, while it's considered performance enhancing, it can also be used as a form of TRT. But if you take it for an extended amount of time, you're actually going to affect the HPA axis. You're going to shut down your testicular production. We've seen numbers as low as 100 and 200 in young males who took weeks to months on end of something like SARMs.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just LGD, right? There are these extraneous SARMs out there that aren't necessarily as safe or effective, like RAD or RAD, 140, Ostarine, etc. So LGD being the safer one, more studied as an alternative. And let's call it what it is. Not all of them are made equal, too. So safety and efficacy, you want to get this from a pharmacy, right? And not all pharmacies are created equal. To find this as a research chemical somewhere, not for human consumption, that is notorious with spiking. The products are spiked with anabolic steroids.
Right.
They're coming back testing 50 to 70% of what it claims. Was it made in a sterile facility?
Right.
There's a lot of what ifs because it's a research chemical.
Right. Yeah. And so, you kind of touched on it a little bit too. I've read some data around the ability of an LGD, let's say, to kind of shut off the natural, production of testosterone, let's say, right? So we really, I guess you guys are really kind of encourage maybe people as they're going through that natural declination piece in life anyway, 35, 40 years old. Is that more the age group we're talking about? And like, to your point, young people don't really need to be doing this anyway, but we wouldn't even necessarily recommend it for them for that reason, right? We do not want to shut off any portion of their endocrine system at 25 years old, right? So they need to wait 10 or 15 years later. That'll naturally occur, right? So then we can start looking at things like this, is what you're saying.
For sure. I think TRT as a whole is subjective. If you have symptoms and you test low, it is time. Age is but a number, but hopefully, if you're taking care of yourself in your 20s, you're far away from this stuff. You don't need this stuff yet. And even if you take LGD, remember, it's time and dose dependent. So you don't really need to take more than 10 milligrams. You can get effects at 5 milligrams, even 3 milligrams on male studies. Women would take far less. But that said, 4 to 8 week cycles, these little periodic pulse cycles.
That was my next question.
Yeah. You don't want to take this, again, long term. The longer you take this, the more suppressive it is to your natural production. And things like TRT are going to be necessary. So some of our providers out there who are taking care of kids in their 20s that are testing below 300, they took SARMs, multiple rounds and cycles of these compounds, and they didn't do it responsibly. Oh. And so we're seeing the effects of that now because unfortunately SARMs were available on over the counter. You could go into a GNC and these supplement stores at one time. Yeah, in our lifetime, you could go and pick up a SARM literally on a shelf. No different than methyl 1 testosterone years ago, in the early 2000s. You could go and pick that up off the shelf. It was sold as a supplement.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I guess I either never saw it or never paid attention to that aspect of it because I've been in and out of those stores for 25 years now.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. Out of curiosity, how many SARMs are out there? I mean, this is one called LGD 4033, which I can't say the name of it. It starts with an L, but how many other SARMs are out there? I mean, and what do the other ones do, out of curiosity?
Well, there's multiples. The ones that have been popularized, though, that we'll stick to, that you'll see out there, is going to be RAD 140.
Okay.
And then something called Ostarine. And then you can technically put MK677 in this category, even though it's not really a SARM. It's a spiro. It's its own little compound. but it's very potent, and it's orally bioavailable for GH support, and it works very, very quickly, similar to LGD.
Okay, interesting. I'm learning a little bit more about MK677. We'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
So let's go back to this kind of comparison contrast between LGD and oxandrolone again, right? I keep going back and touching on that, right?
Yeah.
I've got far more experience with oxandrolone, than I do LGD. But in terms of how it binds to the receptor sites, right? Let's hit on that piece of it again, because and I didn't prep you for this, so I'm putting you on the spot.
Sure.
But post-therapy, right? Like a lot of people will say, one of the main complaints that we get, myself included, and a lot of our patients will say, I love my Anavar cycle. It was great. I did it for, no more than 3 months, like you said. Felt really great during the 3 months, but man, I feel like I just lost the benefits like overnight as soon as I came off of it.
Correct.
Do we see that with LGD or?
No, I mean, I notice, and I would always encourage the person to maintain a high protein diet, right? If they're coming off of anything that was performance enhancing temporarily, because let's put this in that category. It could be used as a TRT alternative, very low grade, right? Making it a low dose daily for longer periods of time. But again, it's going to shut you down. So you're committed at that point. You are committed to being on TRT if you do something like this. Yeah. That said, for these short periodic ones, the rebound is okay, we're noticing, right? Now, the effects, are they lost when you come off of it? I would say, as far as vascularity goes, probably there's some decrease in that. As far as muscle size and volume goes, I feel that you hold on to it a little bit easier and better than you do with something like oxandrolone.
Really?
And some of the strength gains as well. But it's all dependent upon the person, their style of training, right? And what are they doing with a caloric deficit? Are they cutting? Are they maintaining? Are they eating enough protein? Right? So I would always encourage those things. But yeah, LGD I feel is potent. It's very fast acting, but it's also maybe a little bit more permanent. Nothing's 100%. I mean, you would come off something that's performance enhancing. If that were the case, I mean, from what we've all been doing for years, I think we'd all be twice our size. Right.
Yeah,
right. Never lost.
If I could just cut out the alcohol.
Yeah.
And the donuts every now and then. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the fun in that?
Well, there's no fun in it. Yeah. I mean, that's why we do these things. That's why we work out so hard. So it becomes more important as you get a little bit later on in life, man, along in the tooth, so to speak. So, one of the things too that it can be a little bit confusing or discouraging is if, we kind of live in this world of Dr. Google now, right? I mean, we go on there, we think we don't know enough, so we go on there and we start Googling things. If you bring up or you Google something like this product or a SARMs of any kind, a lot of good information out there, but periodically you'll run into some things where it's kind of inconclusive, right? They'll say, well, the studies and the effects are inconclusive and this could potentially cause harm, but it doesn't go into any more detail, right? So you kind of touched on the safety and efficacy of it, right? Okay, it's short kind of mini burst cycles, right? 4 to 6 weeks, that kind of thing. But are there any other contraindications, any potential negative side effects we need to be aware of? Any reason we should do this instead of our TRT therapy or anything we need to avoid? I know I just threw a lot at you.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think the real application, if you're using it as a TRT option, right? If we're looking at it only that and not performance enhancement, it would be for people that have prostate issues because it won't bind with high affinity there. And they want muscle cell increase. They want muscle, strength gain, performance, bone mineral function, and reformulation. I think that's important. As far as taking it for the episodic pulses, like what is the long-term effect of that? We don't know. I mean, to be quite frankly, we don't know what this is going to be 20 years from now. We don't.
Right.
It is a what-if factor. Yeah. So I would always encourage someone to tread lightly here. I would say stick with what we know at this point, that 4 to 8 weeks seems to be safe. And I wouldn't take it longer than that. Right. And I wouldn't take some of the extraneous SARMs that are out there. I would stick with LGD. It's plenty functional. There might be stronger ones out there. There might be ones that people report are better. But again, not knowing what the safety and efficacy looks like of that for long-term use. And this isn't for everybody. I mean, I'm glad you're bringing this up. I think it's a great product. I think it's for gym goers, for athletes, for a lot of things, truthfully. But I also would say do your research.
Yeah.
Make sure this is something that you feel comfortable committing to, and stay away from it if not.
Right.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes for everything, right? I mean, look, the only conclusive data we have around any medication or product that we take is long-term use, right? So it has to be around for a while for us to even know that. So I could make that, because you're right, and I don't disagree with anything that you just said, but I could also make the argument that whenever a pharmaceutical company launches a new sinus medication, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what that's going to do either. Right?
True.
We have no clue.
True.
So, and that's why, a doctor told me a long time ago when I was getting started in this business, 20 some odd years ago, he said, a general unspoken rule among doctors is that we won't try anything that comes out from a pharmaceutical company for at least 5 years, although we may prescribe it to our patients, which is a little scary.
Right.
But
right.
That being said, and that's the way that I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly how we treat this product LGD, is like anything else, right? Let's go with what we know right now to be safe and effective, knowing that may change. Okay, so we're always going to err on the side of being conservative, right? I mean, if we think it's safe to take for 12 weeks, let's not go with that, right? No. Let's go with what the pharmacy and the provider says of, hey, we're going to start you out with maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and then we're going to come off and maybe run some labs and see how you're doing, how you're responding to it.
Yeah, more isn't always better. Right. And this,
That's very counterintuitive.
Right. But I look at life as a marathon race and not a sprint, right? I don't think there's any benefit to rushing something that we're trying to improve or create longevity out of. I don't want to take years off my life unknowingly ever, but I don't want to take years off my life for an expeditious result, right? I don't want to try to, again, sprint to the finish line when if I could slowly get there and it doesn't take away from my lifespan, and I can be there for my wife and my kids and everything that I'm living for right now, which is a lot more responsibility than just myself.
That's right.
A younger Shane without a family, who knows? Maybe he would do 12 weeks. No, he wouldn't. But I just feel like take everyone, if you're going to trial this, let's talk about a starting point. Commit to 4 to 6 weeks of it at 5 milligrams, 10 if you really feel the need to go up that high, and just trial it. And then you'll know if it's for you or not. If you didn't like the effects you got, everyone's different. Like you said, you love oxandrolone. You know what you get with that, right? It's tried and true for you. So this isn't a one size fits all. Like anything, like any prescription or drug or supplement you can take, some people respond really well to some things and some people don't. Right. We're not all cut from the same cloth per se. We're all human, but we all have different physiologic process. We also have different diets. We have different sleep patterns. Everything contributes to whether or not you get results that you care about. Right. So just know that. And again, this is a performance enhancing supplement. It's a TRT addition, right? It's not a true replacement unless you choose that, because you don't like to inject or you don't want to do cream or something. But all in all, I've never noticed any ill effect. And the times I've done it, I've only taken, admittedly, just a couple of rounds of it, but I've enjoyed it both times. Yeah.
Well, this is a good opportunity for a shameless plug of our practice, because kind of what you're describing is exactly why we really try to harp on education, for ourselves, but really provide an avenue for our providers, right? We have a really good, very highly trained staff of doctors and nurse practitioners that are going to talk to the patients about this. This is not something, that patients can just go and request and it's going to be sent, right? We're not a retail outlet. We are a true clinic, and we're going to run lab work on you, and we're going to take a look at those numbers, and our providers are going to look and study that before they ever get on the phone with you. And they're going to develop a medical chart for you, and they're going to have these conversations around the safety and efficacy. And if they don't think that LGD is a good solution for you, they're going to tell you that. They may say, no, I don't, based on what I'm seeing here, I don't think this is something that's for you right now. We'll revisit this later. And we've had patients be told that before, right? So clearly talk to your provider about this. Get more information. Don't just rely on Google searches, because this is a new enough product to where there's probably just as much bad information out there as there is good, right? And we don't want to focus on that. So, we're going to let Shane go about his day, but folks, I want to encourage you, if you're interested in this or any other product that we have at Elite Health Online, go to www.elitehealthonline.com. Again, www.elitehealthonline.com. Several options. You can take a look at the products that we have, take a look at our process. It's very simple. It's very quick and efficient. run some lab work on you, get you hooked up with a provider over the telephone at your choice in terms of time. And then products arrive at your door within 48 to 72 hours. It really could not be more simple, more efficient, and more cost effective. So go to our website, take a look at some options, click the book now button. There's an option to talk to one of our hormone optimization specialists if you just have questions and want to learn about what it is that we do. So one more time, www.elitehealthonline.com, and we'll see you there. Thank you.